July 4th, a holiday on the river. But in just hours, everything changed. Homes swept away, camps destroyed.
We're running down rivers, all those people in the water.
Lives lost.
Now she's in a better place with God holding her right now.
But in the midst of disaster, we see the strength of community, Texans helping Texans, racing toward danger, becoming the heroes their neighbors needed.
True miracle. There's no other way to explain it.
Tonight, we remember those we lost. We honor the courage that emerged in the darkest moments. And we ask what must change before it happens again. Thank you for joining us for this 1 hour special, Hearts and Heroes Flooding in the Texas Hill Country. I'm Cynthia Izaguirre. My colleague Barry Davis is anchoring from the Texas Hill Country tonight in the heart of the devastation where the swollen Guadalupe River surged beyond its banks, tragically sweeping away more than 100 people, homes, and cabins. Barry?
Izzy, in this special, we're going to hear from people who got out literally with minutes to spare. We'll also hear from families dealing with unimaginable loss. We'll ask the tough questions. Were there warning failures? What else could have been done to prevent this level of disaster? But we'll also hear what defines this state: Texans helping Texans. When the waters rose, so did the spirit of these communities. And tonight, we bring you their voices, their heartbreak, their hope, and their path forward.
We begin by going back to the morning of July 4th, a day meant for celebration along the Guadalupe River. Children were at summer camps. Hundreds were getting ready to enjoy the holiday in Kerr County. But in the early morning hours, everything changed. WFAA's Kevin Reese walks us through how the flood unfolded hour by hour.
KVUE News Weather Impact Alert.
Breaking news here in Texas as we come on the air
at least 13 people are dead.
23 girls have been unaccounted for. Their parents.
By the time the news reports came pouring in.
And it has been a heartbreaking start to the holiday here in Central Texas.
Lives were already being lost.
Our prayers and our thoughts are with you.
And souls in the Hill Country.
This is just the beginning.
Yeah,
swept
I think
away.
There's people across the country right now praying for this community.
This came at night when people were asleep. Please pray.
We know now that at 1:14 a.m. July 4th, the National Weather Service did issue a flash flood warning for parts of Kerr County, but that by 2:30 a.m., Lorena Guillen at Blue Oak RV Park was calling the Kerr County Sheriff's Office. She says they told her she was safe.
It was absolutely awful, and it was pitch black.
An hour later, RVs and cars and cabins were racing past her downstream.
And screams, the screaming, it was awful.
The first picture from Camp Mystic showed young girls in only ankle-deep water walking to safety. But at 4:22 a.m., a first responder asks an emergency cell phone push alert be sent to Kerr County residents.
Is there any way we can send a code red out to our Hunt residents asking them to find higher ground or stay home?
We have to get that approved with our supervisor.
Records indicate that caused up to a 90-minute delay. At 5:31 a.m., Kerr County does send a social media post that this is a very dangerous and life-threatening flood event. Move to higher ground. But for more than 100 souls, it was already too late.
We're praying for all of those missing to be found alive.
We didn't know this flood was coming. Rest assured, no one knew this kind of flood was coming.
In just 45 minutes, the flood gauge along the Guadalupe River peaked at 23.4 feet and then went silent. A time lapse of the Llano River shows just how quickly the wall of water arrived. And then the first email to parents from Camp Mystic. We've sustained catastrophic level floods. We have no power, water, or Wi-Fi. If your daughter is not accounted for, you have been notified. If you have have not been personally contacted, then your daughter is accounted for. Please continue to pray and send any help if you have contacts to do so.
I can't even imagine what those girls are going through or what they went through.
Inside their cabins, some with the water reaching almost to the ceiling, 27 young campers drowned or were swept downstream. Camp Director Dick Eastland died, trying to save several of the girls. And at nearby Heart of the Hills camp, Jane Ragsdale called her brother at 3:30 in the morning, trapped inside her home.
I was like, just get out of the house. But I do remember her telling me, she's like, it's already at the bed. I can't get out. I was like, break windows out. Just get out. And she did it.
By the end of the first week, the toll and the scope of the disaster were both staggering. More than 130 dead, more than 150 still missing, and some bodies being recovered as far as 20 miles downstream.
No parents should ever have to bury their child.
But the next flood, one of help, humanity, and hope, that is part of this hill country heartbreak too.
I've been to Kerrville, I don't know how many times, covering stories or riding my motorcycle through these beautiful hills or hunting with people who've spent their entire life here. But how could this happen that fast? How could a storm dump that much water that quickly? For the answer, let's go to the Ken 5 studios and Ryan Shoptaw and let him walk us through how this storm developed.
This historic storm started with tropical rains in the southern Gulf, gradually organizing into the second tropical storm of the 2025 season. Barry began as a tropical wave over the Yucatan Peninsula, and as its center reemerged over water, it strengthened into a tropical storm. Barry then weakened into a tropical depression before making landfall Sunday night, June 29th.
And as these storms make landfall and move away from water, they lose their fuel. They typically fall apart and become remnant areas of showers and thunderstorms. However, in this situation in late June, the remnants of Barry traveled farther north, and the energy crossed over the Rio Grande just before July 4th, igniting a large complex of thunderstorms where slow-moving rain continued to drive in, raining over the same spots hour by hour, day by day, over the hill country and over Kerr County, breaking rainfall records, leading to flooding along rivers where major flood stages were reached in hours' time.
Rapid runoff and the terrain of this part of Texas played a big role. The geography along the Balcones Escarpment creates fast-flowing water across what meteorologists know as Flash Flood Alley. Hilly terrain, shallow soil creates a vulnerable area given the convergence of different weather patterns in the summer. The combination of this region's topography, geology, hot and humid climate create ideal conditions for flash flooding.
In the days leading up to July 4th, Camp Mystic brimmed with song, laughter, and joy. But just moments after midnight, everything changed. The first flash flood watch was issued at 1:14 that morning, while hundreds of girls were sound asleep. Campers as young as 7 were jolted awake by the storm. As thunder rattled overhead, girls who'd spent many summers at Camp Mystic reassured the little ones this weather comes often. But this wasn't just any other storm. Within hours, the power had completely gone out and the Guadalupe River began to rise. The cabin closest to the water was Bug House, where a counselor's quick action saved several of her girls. She tore through the rain to alert staff. Camp Director Dick Eastland wafted through the waters to evacuate them. Hours later, the water rose to the roof. The person who put his heart and soul into Camp Mystic died getting campers to safety. In other parts of the camp, staff led campers through knee-deep water to Rec Hall, where the girls waited on the second floor for hours as the water rose.
Our usual flooding plan is to get to the highest point, but it happened so quickly that no one really had time.
Hand in hand, they prayed and sang for hours in the night. By the time some girls realized the severity of the flooding, it was too late to get campers to that central point. At Wiggling Cabin, they waited out the storm on mattresses until the waters began to recede. At Chatterbox Cabin, 9-year-old girls watched as their rescue car floated away. They climbed out of windows and up the hill behind the cabin as high as possible. They waited hours in the rain for help to arrive. But in the cabin that housed 13 of the camp's youngest girls, doors on two sides of the building brought in water faster than the others. Tonight, all of the campers and counselors inside that cabin are either missing or dead. When the sun finally began to rise, stuffed animals and blankets lay on the lawn, and campers and counselors waited for rescue as they held on to mattresses, poles, and trees. They clung to hope that their friends and sisters also survived a night of horror they'll never forget.
Now, 2 weeks after the floods, and this is what's left. There are mountains of debris everywhere. Trash from homes ripped off their foundations and twisted, mangled metal, almost symbolic of the lives forever changed. And in the midst of all this heartache, we're hearing stories of hope and sisterhood. Teresa Woodard brings us the voices of Camp Mystic, raw and resilient, as they try to reconnect with the place that helped shape them.
In Camp Mystic's online archives are decades-old videos.
We are so glad y'all are here.
And almost century-old photos. Girls started spending summers here in 1926. Ever present are smiles and songs.
Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
You can feel their faith and see the fun.
You can truly be yourself as a kid there.
And the backdrop to most every memory made is the water. For generations,
yeah, I went to Camp Mystic for 5 years, and then my sister went to camp there for 10 years.
Girls grew up on the Guadalupe River. Camping here built character and camaraderie. Mystic girls are more than friends.
They almost feel like more than family just because of the bonds you make going every summer, seeing the same people.
Perhaps it brings a bit of peace to know how much these campers must have loved one another and how much the camp loved them. On the morning of July 4th, when the river overtook them, they were together. Almost 30 campers and counselors are gone. Camp Director Dick Eastland is too.
It was nobody's fault. And if I did have a little girl, I would still send her to Mystic in a minute. Dick Eastland died trying to save the campers he loved. And there's no other place on earth I would want my little girl to be, where she's loved so much that somebody else would die trying to save her.
On the other side of Mystic, campers knew there was a terrible storm, but did not know it was catastrophic.
I feel guilty that we were so safe and oblivious while they were living hell on earth.
The gravity, the reality set in.
The Lord of love has come to me. I want to pass it on.
On a bus, evacuating. Devastation surrounded them, yet still they sang. Mystic is not a place, it is a spirit, something carried inside, something carried on.
Thanks for a great tour. See you next year. Bye-bye.
We've heard from so many people who say Camp Mystic isn't just a place, it's a part of them. Our station in Austin, KVUE, shares the story of one former camper, now a writer and teacher, who shares her memories that helped shape her, and the heartache of seeing that place forever changed.
I was a Mystic girl for 7 years, I think, between 87 and 93. Camp Mystic is a very wholesome place. Kindness and friendship are just constantly reiterated there. I mean, the river is Camp Mystic, you know? The river runs through my dreams. I write about Camp Mystic all the time. I still write about it. And I am now a camp director. I run 7 creative writing camps for middle schoolers and high schoolers during the summer. Mystic imprinted on me. It was a place kind of outside of real life where you were free to be yourself and also to discover who you wanted to be and try out different versions of yourself in a really supportive environment. You know, when I think about Mystic, I hear the little smack of like hundreds of girls flip-flops along the gravel paths and the limestone steps. I hear the buzz of like 50 tiny electric fans going all at once in those cabins at night. I hear the cicadas. I hear like voices singing, coming like through the dark toward you, and you can't see who it is yet, but you can hear them singing. I think about how good the food is. You know, I have gone back there often in my mind. It's a sort of place of safety, which is why, you know, this part of why this is just so, it's just so tragic, because for so many people, like, that's our imaginative safe space. I think girls that age are often feel so awkward and are so self-conscious when they're in the regular school year. But a place like Mystic, they really are in their bodies and in the world and just feeling the full joy of youth and discovery. And it's just beautiful.
The moment the news broke about the scope of the deadly floods, Texans stood ready to provide our neighbors every need, dropping their holiday plans to race to the center of the devastation with shovels, blankets, food, flashlights, you name it. Many of you reached out desperate to help, and thanks to your generosity, 11 Tegna stations across Texas have raised more than $500,000 for flood victims within the span of just 2 weeks. We thank you for your generosity. Every dollar raised will go directly to the nonprofits working around the clock in the Texas Hill Country. And we're not stopping here. We continue to rally around every person impacted in Central Texas. If you'd like to give, please scan the QR code on your screen right now. Again, All donations go directly to vetted nonprofits on the ground in the Hill Country, providing immediate and long-term aid. They'll appreciate anything you're able to give. To understand just how extreme this flooding was, you have to look at the sheer volume of water that poured into the Hill Country. WFAA meteorologist Maria Ruiz has covered the region for years during her time in Austin and studied the numbers and the history.
Water is incredibly powerful. It's hard to picture a foot of rain and the impacts that it can have on any terrain. Let's take Kirk County, for example. 12 inches of rain fell July 3rd into the 4th of July holiday. 12 inches of rain caused the Guadalupe River to rise 27 feet in 45 minutes. This runoff happened incredibly fast, and this is to do with the terrain, with the type of soil, and of course, the intense rainfall from those storms that came in. Whenever you calculate that out, that amounts to 120 billion gallons of water for the entire county. Now, this, of course, varies a little bit depending on what specific point in the county you're seeing. It's hard to imagine that amount of water. So let's take Niagara Falls, for example. Niagara Falls sees 45 million gallons of water every single minute. Over the course of an hour, that's 2.7 billion gallons of water. And over the course of a day, it's 65 billion gallons of water that flows over Niagara Falls. Well, for Kirk County, they saw almost double that amount of water in only 6 to 8 hours.
Kerrville has always been this beautiful little picturesque town tucked away in the Hill Country. Now, this is it. Everywhere you look, and I mean literally everywhere you look, there is debris stacked up everywhere. Trees, trash. To look how powerful this storm is, check out this dumpster. This thing was literally twisted in half by the power of the water when it came ripping through here. And when these little towns began to flood, it was a literal race against time to save as many people as possible. Emergency crews from across Texas converged in the Hill Country, arriving by air, by boat, and on foot. But it wasn't just first responders. In many cases, it was neighbors, sometimes total strangers, risking their life to pull others to safety. Jobin Paniker gives us a look at those life-saving moments and the people who answered the call when seconds mattered.
July 4th in Kerr County was eventful, and for all the wrong reasons.
Oh my God! There's people screaming in the river!
This came at night.
They woke up underwater.
When people were asleep. In bed.
And overrun by raging floodwaters from the Guadalupe River.
It was just a
roar that couldn't drown out.
And then sound.
What haunts many of them now.
And you can hear them screaming.
I saw children floating in the water begging for help that we could not reach.
The river has flooded before, but never like this.
There were no minutes. It was seconds.
Never 26 feet in 45 minutes.
There's so much water between me and where I had to go.
Every good and fun down by the river story has been replaced with the horrors they've witnessed.
We saw all of the other camps destroyed, obliterated.
The doors opened and the flood came in from both sides.
We heard so many survival stories in Central Texas.
Go tighter!
In San Angelo, rescuers braved the rushing river, forming a human chain to save a woman. In Center Point, another woman was pulled from a tree she had climbed to escape the rising floodwaters.
Grab whatever and get out, get out.
And there was furniture everywhere. The water was up to here.
People clinging to trees, to mattresses, to pillars, to hope.
We just held on for a couple more hours.
Yeah, a couple hours. We waited and waited and waited.
But for far too many people, young and old, the river was faster than the help.
He started yelling at them, throw me your baby, throw me your baby.
The floodwaters didn't just take their towns, it took their world.
Both my parents are deceased, and I said, Mom, Dad, God, help.
More than 130 people are now confirmed dead, including dozens of children who were attending summer camp along the river.
I can't even imagine what those girls are going through.
There is a grim comfort in knowing many are still missing. Even more families are left painfully wondering.
There are going to be some of us that are going to walk away empty-handed. We're going to have to bring our child home.
Over the next several days, the death toll rose as the water receded, and it has revealed the worst.
It's like mass destruction. It's like a third world war zone.
The efforts to find survivors continues in the air, on land, and on the river.
They're running into a lot of technical challenges with terrain, with water.
Almost 2 weeks later, at some point, search and rescue becomes recovery.
I can't say I'm okay, but I'm gonna do my job.
It was supposed to be a day to celebrate, but Kerr County spent it fighting to survive.
Please pray for our community.
July 4th now means something more.
This is a hard day.
On the Guadalupe River, I'm Jobin Punker.
This area is known as Flash Flood Alley. It's not uncommon to get flooding, but not like we saw on July 4th. And there are warning systems in place to try to keep people safe. But a lot of folks are asking, could more have been done? For that answer, let's go to Pat Calvin in the KHOU studio in Houston for a look at the timeline of the warnings that were issued.
Yeah, and that timeline here is so important, and it actually starts the day before. Thursday, July 3rd, just after 1 p.m., Flash Flood Watch is issued for Central Texas. That includes the Hill Country, and that's basically the National Weather Service's way of saying a flood could happen in this area, but we can't pinpoint where that exactly will be. Later that evening, high-resolution data starts to point more towards the potential of a high-impact flash flooding situation, and so they issue a special discussion about it. It's not until the flooding actually starts, those heavy storms develop, that the National Weather Service is able to say, okay, this exact area is where flooding is going to become an issue. And so at that point, 1:14 a.m., Friday, July 4th, that flash flood warning is issued with a tag that triggers emergency alerts on cell phones. 3 hours later, that situation becomes so bad it's upgraded to a flash flood emergency. So yet again, those cell phone alerts are going off. It's important to note, however, that you only get those cell phone alerts if you have cell phone service. And 17 minutes after that flash flood emergency is issued, the Guadalupe River at Hunt hits major flood stage. Now, we talked about this area being known as Flash Flood Alley. Now, exactly what is that? It extends from the Dallas Metroplex down to the U.S.-Mexico border, and it's where you've got Pacific and Gulf moisture overlapping to produce heavy rainstorms. And the Hill Country is pretty much the bullseye for this, and it's also the area where a lot of major rivers run through the state of Texas. So what makes us so unique? Let's talk about the Guadalupe River itself. This is where we had that major flooding, and all of these small streams and creeks run into the Guadalupe down steep terrain with shallow soil, and so when heavy rain comes down in this area, it has nowhere to go but to fill this river, and that's what leads to flash flooding during heavy rain events.
Local leaders and emergency officials have faced tough questions in recent days, but this isn't just about accountability, it's about solutions. Tonight, the Investigates team from our Tegna station in Houston examines what systems failed and what must change to protect Texans in the future. Here's Jeremy Rogalski.
Yeah, we discovered breakdowns, shortcomings, and missed opportunities to keep people safe. That date from that dreadful July 4th morning to a decade before the raging river came through.
Despite the menacing nickname Flash Flood Alley, the level of preparedness in these parts has been a mixed bag.
The evacuation sirens have been sounded.
The morning of July 4th, the Bernie Star newspaper captured blaring sirens in the town of Comfort.
Floodwaters continue to rise,
warning folks to get to higher ground. At least 4 counties along the Guadalupe River have outdoor warning sirens in place. But in the hardest hit Kerr County,
we do not have a warning system.
It just hit me, why didn't we have that?
It sparked a Texas mom to start an online petition for a Kerr County early warning system.
If they had 5 minutes warning, if these kids had 5 minutes warning, they would have saw what was going on, and I guarantee you they would have took those kids and ran for higher ground.
But when Kerr County officials debated sirens years earlier, it did not go over well. In 2016, then Commissioner Buster Baldwin said, "The thought of our beautiful Kerr County having these damn sirens going off in the middle of the night, I'm going to have to start drinking again to put up with y'all." The following year, another commissioner, Tom Moser, said, "Too many people said they did not want sirens." And so Moser and county leaders never pursued them.
Did Kerr County do enough?
In hindsight, could we have done more? Perhaps so. Should we? Perhaps so, but it's a matter of, the money that you have and the revenue you have coming in.
Accountability also rests where so many young campers and counselors died. Headlines show Camp Mystic flooded many times since opening nearly a century ago.
It was a ticking time bomb, Camp Mystic.
Jeff Evans spent more than a decade forecasting Texas storms in his 34-year National Weather Service career.
The terrain and the way those creeks converged, it was just a matter of time till what happened on the 4th of July happened.
Even with the known danger, records show Camp Mystic tried to get out of FEMA's special flood hazard maps, requesting the removal of 15 camp buildings in 2013, and years later, 15 more.
Spending time and resources fighting the maps rather than really focusing on safety.
Syracuse University professor Sarah Pralley doesn't know why Camp Mystic challenged FEMA's maps, and the camp did not respond to requests for comment. But her years of research reveals property owners often do so to avoid costly flood insurance and stricter building codes.
You would think that at a camp for young people, they would be particularly cautious, certainly about the risk of flooding.
In the end, FEMA approved both requests, putting much of Camp Mystic on paper just out of the blue-shaded 100-year floodplain. But in reality, Pralley says, it was still in the thick of it.
The lowest point in those areas was sometimes a foot above the base flood elevation. That's not a lot of room for error.
The Guadalupe is starting to come up and Shoemaker is no longer passable at this time.
There was no room for error when the torrential floodwaters rolled through.
I had this program running.
But real-time scanner recordings captured by John David Trollinger offer a glimpse at the gaps in alerting those in harm's way. Listen to a firefighter's urgent plea at 4:22 in the morning.
Is there any way we can send a code red out to our Hunt residents asking them to find higher ground or stay home?
Standby, we have to get that approved with our supervisor.
Code Red is Kerr County's emergency notification system that can push alerts to residents' phones. Trollinger, who helped install the system as the county's former IT director, says he didn't receive one until after 10 that morning.
Someone needs to be on the phone to authorize it immediately and get these alerts sent out.
That is a point of failure.
Jeanette Sutton is founder of the Warn Room, a training tool for agencies to improve warnings and alerts.
For whatever reason, they weren't available to get in touch with that supervisor in the middle of the night. That does need to be addressed. That's where people's lives are on the line.
But officials have repeatedly said their priority is on recovering the lives lost, not a timeline of the emergency response.
We're not running. We're not going to hide from everything. That's going to be checked into at a later time.
The time for accountability, they say, will start at the state capitol with the upcoming legislative special session.
Our city of Kerrville and Kerr County leadership are committed to a transparent and full review of processes and protocols.
In Flash Flood Alley, a review perhaps long overdue.
I'm Jason Whiteley, and it will be up to the legislature to look for solutions and ways to prevent loss of life during future floods. Lawmakers returned to the state capitol Monday for a special 30-day legislative session, and addressing this disaster is now paramount. But even something as simple as an early warning system is much more complex than you might think when you're dealing with rising rivers. State Senator Paul Betancourt from Houston explained one idea that he plans to propose.
My idea was to use old tech sirens and combine them with what everybody is getting overloaded on, which are these cell phones right now. Because, we'll have a blue alert, an amber alert, a silver alert, a security alert, your bank will call you, whatever. And people are now turning these alerts off. In fact, in Texas, we turn off these alerts 5 times as fast as Vermonters do.
Well, I'm one of those people who turned it off. And,
Sure.
if I'm camping down there along the Guadalupe, how can I be notified?
Well, that's part of the problem. Now, also, you don't get cell signal down there. Now, so we think a technology package, and that's the bill I'm working on with the Lower Colorado River Authority, that will look at sirens with, Starlink towers, 5G, so we've got redundancy, multiple messages, et cetera. And really what you're trying to do is layer on. You want to get people's attention. The real problem is that in the middle of the night, with these turned off or picked up in a camp, you have to get people's attention. So, and there's nothing like an old school siren to get that attention, but you have to make sure it's triggered correctly. We've got gauges that tie into it. There's what's called a supervisory computer and data acquisition, taking the input. So there's a lot of things we have to do with this technology package, but that's just going to be part of many bills that the committee looks at.
Betancourt said he's still fine-tuning it, but his is just one idea. And if passed, it would add sirens to watersheds across the state, not just along the Guadalupe and in central Texas. Lawmakers are also asking for input from those directly affected by the flash floods. The Texas Senate holding a hearing in Kerrville July 31st. And state leaders say whatever solution that lawmakers propose and eventually pass, they want it deployed and in place within a year.
The torrential rains that upended hundreds of lives went far beyond Kerr County lines. Closer to the state's capital, at least 17 people died in the floodwaters of Travis, Williamson, and Burnett counties. Even now, weeks later, several others remain unaccounted for. Tonight, Brianna Perez shares their stories of loss, survival, and the heavy burden to rebuild.
I'm near FM 1431. Lago Vista is on this side and Marble Falls is directly on the other side. Construction has begun on the Cow Creek Bridge, which was washed away during the recent flooding. It was here in the morning of July 5th during a heavy rainstorm when the creek rose up suddenly and a family was driving to summer camp.
According to friends of the Hammond family from Marble Falls, the rain was so heavy they didn't see the bridge had been ripped apart. Their van was washed away into the raging creek. The parents and 2 children were able to get to safety, but 17-year-old Malaya Hammond was swept away by the strong current. Her body was recovered several days later. Across Travis, Williamson, and Burnett counties, Malia's death would be among the tragic stories of lives lost and families uprooted. At Leander, Brandon Dunn spent days searching for his father, who lived along Brushy Creek in Williamson County. After a 6-day search, his body was found. It's believed that Brandon's dad had been near the creek when the water levels rose suddenly. The floods of July 5th also caused devastating property losses in Georgetown. Jordan Anderson and his family of 4 have called the Shady River RV Resort home for the last 5 years. Their home was wiped out by the flood.
We all got out with a set of clothes each and some things, but not everything. Maybe when I went back, I wasn't really thinking of grabbing things. I was trying to get the whole thing out, so everything's gone.
The Snyder family, whose ranch in Williamson County has served as a gathering place for family and friends for more than 20 years, lost nearly everything when the heavy rains came. Christy Hartman and her family were in a mobile home on her parents' property. On July 4th, as the family watched news coverage of flooding in Kerrville, they had no idea their own home would soon be at risk.
We were out of the flood zone, so we weren't even worried.
That changed overnight when Hartman was awakened by a phone call from a relative who was concerned about the heavy rains.
So she looked out the window and the water was already up to the bottom of the window. But by the time we opened the door, the waters rushed in, and so we ran up the stairs.
6 adults and 5 children took shelter in an upstairs room as floodwater washed away everything below.
It's a miracle that we're alive. And we're just, all of this, we can deal with this. It doesn't matter. But we have each other.
The Snyders demolished what remained of their home. Despite the loss, the family said the outpouring of support from the community has been overwhelming, helping them clean up the debris and pack up what was salvaged from the home.
This area in Travis County is considered to be part of the flash flood alley. It's where rolling hills and hundreds of creeks, as well as unpredictable weather, combine every now and then to create destructive floods like what we saw here the past couple of weeks. Reporting near Lago Vista, I'm Brianna Perez.
As much of a tragedy as it has been, it's also been a scene of heroism every single day. Despite those who have lost their lives, there are even more than that who had their lives saved by people who went into danger.
We've shown you incredible rescues during those first few hours. First responders working nonstop to save friends, neighbors, and total strangers. And a rookie Coast Guard swimmer who brought nearly 170 people to safety. But there are hundreds of other everyday Texans, just like these folks under this awning, that became heroes instantly, offering comfort, compassion, and a dry place when the water rose. The thing is, now that the water's gone, there's a dry place, but there's no more home. That was a home. This was a home. This was a home. And you can see what's happening to that one. We've seen volunteers drive hours to clear debris and support families who've lost everything. There are shelters making room for pets that were evacuated or lost, and absolute strangers cooking thousands of meals for those who need it most.
It's a calling. And we feel for each person that we're feeding because they've had loss and big loss.
Neighbors coming together just to hold and support one another, proving Southern hospitality isn't just a saying, it's who we are in Texas, especially in our darkest hours.
From Austin to Houston to Dallas, Texans from far and wide have gathered to grieve. Under the soft glow of candlelight, parents with children, neighbors, and strangers have stood shoulder to shoulder to pay their respects to the lives lost in Central Texas. The grief is so profound, but so is the resolve. Across the state, hope flickers, even in the dark.
I cannot imagine the grief that so many are experiencing just an hour north of us.
Darkness cannot drive out darkness. And my beloved, these lights that we are holding are symbolic of that light that's going to drive out this darkness that is literally flooded places like Kerrville and the other counties, and those of you who have been affected through the loss of a loved one.
We know the impact is deep. The young children who I cannot imagine the horror and the terror that many of them felt on that evening in the middle of the night.
I know many are still in the darkness.
And I just believe that anything and everything we do, we have to stand alongside each other to do that, and that's why we're here tonight.
Declaration is a sign of faith. I want you to lift your light in the air as high as you see yourself in this state of Texas, rising above this darkness, a peace that don't make sense. And we need that peace because right now it don't make sense, this tragedy. And that cause tonight and beyond is to bring healing, is to bring relief, to bring provision, and to take action for those that were affected by this flood.
Along the banks of the Guadalupe River in Kerrville, more than 140 wooden crosses now stand as a growing memorial to those lost in the July 4th floods. Each cross bears messages from grieving families and communities across Texas. Amanda Henderson shows us how this simple gesture is helping families feel seen and not alone.
In the heart of Ingram, Texas, you'll find the banks of the Guadalupe River. Wildlife making their way through piles of branches, while the race to recover victims continues.
What troubles have you guys had with the water today?
Well, we were working last day, but yesterday and today, we have to stop for the raining. The raining is causing the rivers comes up.
Manolo Acevedo is with Protección Civil from Nuevo León, Mexico. They are armed with ATVs, divers, boats, maps, and search dogs, only taking breaks when officials tell them it's too dangerous to search. The team is one of several we saw today, walking the river, searching for evidence of those swept away in the floods.
Talking with some of them is difficult. What they show us in videos and what we find in the river too.
About 4 miles downriver from Acevedo's team in Kerrville, today we found Roberto Marquez.
So how many of these have you made so far?
But I believe we need to make another 18.
The artist is hand-making these crosses to honor those lost across Texas.
You can see that lumber has been broken. The river, pushed, must have been a wall, fence.
The crosses line Guadalupe Park, a wall for people to leave messages also nearby.
I can't help but notice this one. It says blessings and prayers from Uvalde, Texas.
See what I mean? There's a lot of people from Uvalde.
He reads the notes out loud to us.
United in love for the Texas Hill Country.
Marquez hopes this will bring a sense of peace for those who visit.
This becomes a sacred place for everyone to come and unite so we can all get together and comfort each other. I think that's what we are up to do, and especially at this moment.
From tree branches to rooftops, the ways people made it through the storm are nothing short of miraculous. Some were 15 feet in the air, others floated on mattresses as floodwaters surged around them. Tonight, one message rises above it all: the gratitude of being alive.
We're on Water Street in Kerrville at a growing memorial to those who died the night of the floods. One man says the Houston Astros and Jesus Christ saved his life July 4th. He also says what he heard and saw that night will stay with him forever. Mike Jimenez has his story.
And for the first time, I just broke down. You know, I mean, my mom cried in my arms yesterday.
Ricky Ray Robertson says when the Guadalupe River started to rise, he didn't have time to think, saving his brother who was at home along the river.
I was banging on that door. He couldn't hear me, so I had to kick in the back door.
Robertson says when he first crossed the street, it was dry, but in less than a minute, the waters had risen.
Then when I got him, when we went back across, it was a little bit over my waist.
Robertson stays at a cabin behind the home where his brother lives, which was washed away by the river. But on that night, he was watching the Astros game across the street, deciding not to go home when the rains began to fall.
Houston Astros and Jesus Christ saved my life.
As Robertson scrambled to save what he could, he says he heard screams from the river that he says will haunt him forever.
I think what I heard on this river that night was just more mind-blowingly chilling.
As the waters have receded, Robertson says several bodies have been recovered near his home and have left behind a trail of destruction.
This green shed came from next door. The car came from 9 miles away. The barn and the trailer moved about 30 feet. We lost another trailer and 2 cabins.
Robertson says as he reflects on the power of the river and the aftermath of all the chaos and destruction, he isn't lucky to be alive, he's blessed. And a symbol of that still stands, a cross erected 14 years ago after his stepfather passed, and only 10 inches in the ground, it withstood the raging waters.
This is eternal. And what it means to me is my faith is stronger than that river.
Faith reminding him to stand strong, and by sharing his story, it's allowing him to heal.
I need to cry a little bit. I need to break down. I need to let some of this out. You have to breathe, and you do have to realize that we are human.
Over the past couple of weeks, we've heard so many stories of survival. 12 miles north of Kerrville, in Ingram, a couple clung to a pillar for hours as floodwaters swallowed their home. We were there the first time they went home again, and though so much was gone, there was one thing Doug and Libby Fuller were sure they'd never see again. Here's Tiffany Liu.
5 days after the deadly floods in Kerr County, a couple who survived it.
Scared. I mean, I'm scared, but I need to see it with my own eyes. Because if I don't, I'll speculate.
Are wondering about their home right by the Ingram Dam. For the first time, Doug Fuller
it's all gone.
And his wife, Libby Evans Fuller, are seeing what's left. There are no words. It was around 4 in the morning, July 4th. Her husband woke her up. Libby put on clothes, and in that short time,
You know, the water's coming in under the door at this point.
the couple says they saw 5 feet of water in less than 5 minutes.
We were on the mattress of the bed, floating, you know, this far from the ceiling.
I had the ceiling fan in my stomach.
Doug first swam toward the door, hanging onto the frame.
The refrigerator was floating in the living room. There was furniture everywhere. The water was up to here.
Libby made it to the door too, but the violent waves kept coming.
The door slammed on my hand, luckily just bursting a blood vessel, but he had already flown off and grabbed the pillar.
No one else could have saved them.
I knew I was about to go, and just he caught me. Grabbed my hand in my pants and grabbed me to the pillar, and we just held on for a couple more hours.
Yeah, a couple hours, and
until the water actually subsided all by itself and we could touch the ground again.
This pillar saved your life.
Yes, it did.
Doug and Libby are still in shock they survived as they think about all the lives lost, especially the little ones at Camp Mystic, just a few miles away.
I can't even imagine what those girls are going through or what they went through.
The families too. If you had asked me to trade places, I'd do it in a heartbeat with those kids. I mean, why us and not them?
As they see their unrecognizable apartment and all their damaged things,
They found his wedding ring.
they found hers too.
Having things that already have memories attached to them, I mean, I didn't have anything.
Libby and Doug are filled with wonder. They know to be alive is to be grateful. In Ingram, I'm Tiffany Liu.
This place truly is special. The people here are kind and caring. When the cameras leave and the headlines fade, and they will, this community will still be here, rebuilding, remembering, and holding on to lives that were forever changed by this flood. We want to thank you, our viewers across this great state and across the nation, for your compassion, for your caring, most of all, for your support. And because the river took so much, it also revealed something much, much deeper. It brought out and put on full display the strength of neighbors, the power of unity, and the heart of what it means to be a Texan.
I sing songs about Texas.
For Texas country music star Pat Green, this is personal. His younger brother John Burgess, sister-in-law Julia, and their sons James and Jack, among those swept away.
And sing me one more song about old San Antonio.
For all of the victims and survivors, Green's Wednesday night virtual concert at Globe Life Field in Arlington raised more than $1 million.
The one thing I know about Texas is Texas stands up for Texas.
And from lemonade stands to telethons to mobile chefs and kitchens,
There's hope. All these people are here to help.
volunteers continue to stand for Central Texas. Hundreds of rescuers and searchers still hard at work.
We've been putting 18-hour days in, 24-hour days at times, doing everything we can to get these families closure.
Rescuers from Texas and surrounding states, even from Mexico.
We are talking about we lost people, we lost children.
And in addition to dozens of corporations, including the Texas Rangers and the Dallas Cowboys, money continues to flow into the Kerr County Flood Relief Fund.
Neighbors helped neighbors, strangers became rescuers, and our sense of community shined through even the darkest storm.
And searchers are even scouring rivers to recover and reunite lost photos and stuffed animals and belongings and more with their owners.
You know, I say a win is a win, and, you know, and it's little glimmers of hope.
It's good to be home.
Hope that has been in short supply.
I have nothing but gratitude for those people that were so kind to my family.
Kindness that will need to continue as Central Texas recovers. I'm Kevin Reese.